Chapter 237. Gongzi, we can't proceed any further. The Gogrian expert is right ahead. Just as Wang Chong was deep in thought, a soft but powerful hand suddenly reached out from behind and grabbed his arm. Besides, we still don't know if that Gogrian King Sojurim is here. If he's here, we might not even be able to escape if we were to be discovered. Mayasame Ayaka said anxiously. It wasn't a secret that Wang Chong wanted to deal with King Sojurim, but anything that involved the Gogrian spy was incomparably dangerous. Putting aside how elusive that person was, he had a large group of vicious and formidable Gogrian assassins under him. The first name that Mayasame Ayaka heard upon entering the assassin circle was King Sojurim. If not for Wang Chong, she wouldn't have taken the initiative to provoke King Sojurim. Yet Wang Chong was more daring than the heavens, sneaking here alone. Even she couldn't stop him. Heh, don't worry, your worries are unfounded. King Sojurim isn't here. At the very most, he's just a Turkic condor shooter. Wang Chong turned around and revealed his findings with a suppressed voice. If King Sojurim isn't here, then our operation is meaningless. It's not worth spending so much effort just for a Gogrian expert. Why don't we retreat for now? We'll inform the royal court after we leave, and the royal court will deal with this Gogrian base. Mayasame Ayaka persuaded softly. This was the safest method. Retreat? How can that be? Wang Chong chuckled. The reason why we're investigating the Gogrian base isn't to hand it over to the royal court. If Mayasame Ayaka thought that Wang Chong was doing this to exact vengeance for the Gogurians' night assault, she was being too naive. The reason why Wang Chong was investigating the Gogurians wasn't just to hand them over to the royal court. Wait here for me. Wang Chong's heart thumped. He suddenly moved his hands and feet like a giant black lizard. Shaking his head and wagging his tail, he quickly made his way to the room in front of him. Young master. Shocked, Mayasame Ayaka reached out to grab him, but it was already too late. Mayasame Ayaka trembled in fear, and her face paled. The perception of a true martial realm martial artist was very sharp, even she did not dare to cross this distance. Wang Chong actually touched it just like that. But what was even more shocking was that Mayasame Ayaka could still sense Wang Chong's presence. But in the blink of an eye, Wang Chong's aura vanished from Mayasame Ayaka's senses like a bubble. Mayasame Ayaka could still vaguely make out Wang Chong's silhouette, but she couldn't sense his aura at all. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Mayasame Ayaka was completely stunned. She wanted to go over, but she didn't dare to take the risk. What Wang Chong could do, she wasn't confident that she could. Oblivious to Mayasame Ayaka's thoughts, Wang Chong's tortoise-breathing art, which he had learned from Eblonidon and Arloja, came in handy at this moment. This tortoise hibernation, a mystical art of the Sindhi monks of the western regions, allowed one to bury oneself deep underground, sealing off all the pores of one's body, preventing the slightest bit of one's aura from leaking out. On top of that, one's metabolism would also be reduced to a snail's pace, allowing one to go without food or water for months or even years. This was something that even Wang Chong was unable to achieve back then. Back then, he was astonished when he heard of it. It could be considered as a legendary art born from the impoverished land of Sindh. Even though it wasn't too powerful, it was extremely miraculous. Wang Chong's tortoise-breathing art hadn't reached the level where one would be fine without food or water for months or even years. However, sealing off all the pores of one's body to prevent the slightest bit of one's aura from leaking out was still possible. Under such circumstances, coupled with the celestial steps, it was entirely possible for one to fool the other party. The shadows of the lanterns on the window flickered, and the soft chatter of Gogurians could be heard from within. It was the conversation between two famous beauties. Wang Chong had learned Gogrian back then. The reason why he came here was because he heard a familiar phrase. "How's the investigation?" A cold voice in the room asked. It sounded authoritative. "I'm almost done. I've gathered all the information on White Tiger Peak." The other authoritative voice replied. A familiar sensation assaulted him once more, and the frown on Wang Chong's face deepened. This was the second time he had heard of this term. I'll hand it over to Lord once I've gathered all the information. Our loss the previous time was too bizarre. Lord must have his reasons for instructing us to do so. We'll know what's going on once we look into it. The authoritative voice replied. Wang Chang's mind buzzed, and countless thoughts flashed across his mind. He vaguely understood something. Your subordinate understands. The second authoritative voice replied. Also, pay attention to one thing. Lord has instructed us to stay low for the next few months. We mustn't cause any trouble. The Tang dynasty is loose on the outside, but tight on the inside. It's not as simple as it looks. The warriors we transferred over from the empire were used by the Tang dynasty to temper them. Not a single one of them escaped. The voice, which sounded like it had a high status, seemed to be a little repressed. It paused for a moment before continuing. However, these warriors died a worthy death. They have served the empire loyally. Also, Lord has instructed us to deal a heavy blow as long as we survive this wave. He has already contacted His Majesty, and a batch of elite warriors will be arriving from the empire soon. When the time comes, we'll make the Tang dynasty suffer. Lord has his eyes on a batch of famous officials of the Tang dynasty. These people have never been friendly to our Goguryeo. When the time comes, we'll make them disappear from the face of the earth. We'll make the Tang dynasty suffer to the bone. Long live Goguryeo! Long live Saint Gaisaman! The authoritative voice seemed to have been injected with adrenaline, and it immediately grew agitated. Outside the window, Wang Chang's heart jolted. In that instant, a frenzied gale blew in his heart, raising huge waves. King Sojurim is moving ahead of schedule. This was the only thought that remained in Wang Chang's mind. King Sojurim's operation in the Central Plains wasn't limited to just this once. The assassinations and sabotage he organized would occur once every 3 to 5 years. King Sojurim had assassinated the important officials of the royal court before. But Wang Chong knew that none of them could compare to the one King Sojurim carried out half a year later. The censors of the royal court, the generals of the Bureau of Military Personnel, Bureau of Punishments, and some old officials of the Tang dynasty were all assassinated. Even the maids and servants in their residences were executed. This incident shocked the entire royal court, and even the Holy Emperor was infuriated. It was because of this incident that King Sojurim was hunted down by the entire royal court. Even the royal guards, chamberlains of Chamberlain, and the nobles of the royal court were involved. However, he was well prepared. After the assassination was over, he successfully backed out of the Tang dynasty and returned to Goguryeo safely. The entire incident of the Tang dynasty had made him famous. But this matter should have happened half a year later. Why would it be brought forward so suddenly? Wang Chang's heart was pounding furiously. But there was one thing that Wang Chong was certain of. The matter that the Goguryeo leaders were discussing was undoubtedly that matter. The Goguryeo martial arts syndicate already had considerable influence in the capital. For King Sojurim to mobilize a large number of elite soldiers from the capital, this was the only time in history that such a matter had happened within half a year. If not for the fact that he could understand Goguryeo, no one would have known of this matter. All right. You can leave now. The troops that Lord has requested will take another month or so to arrive. Make sure to pay attention to this period of time. The royal court of the Tang dynasty is currently investigating us. Make sure not to let them find anything. Pardon me for being presumptuous, but Lord, you're overestimating them. It's not that I'm looking down on them. If they really had that kind of ability. That's true. In the room, the two Goguryans laughed heartily as they ended their conversation. In the room, the two Goguryans laughed heartily and ended their conversation. Not too long after Wang Chong hid in the shadows, the door suddenly opened, and a tall and muscular Goguryeo expert carrying a long black sword bag on his back walked out. Sweeping his gaze across the surroundings, he leaped onto the roof, and in a few leaps, he disappeared from the courtyard. After the expert left, the room fell silent. Under the light, the man sat motionless in front of the table, seemingly lost in thought. No one knew what he was thinking about. How childish of me to fail to capture you. At the same time, Wang Chong sneered coldly as he slowly retreated along the path he came from. Gongzi, how is it? Upon seeing Wang Chong, Mayasame Ayaka heaved a long sigh of relief. She had been so nervous that she feared that Wang Chong would be discovered. She was prepared to make a move at any moment. But in her heart, Mayasame Ayaka was impressed. Wang Chong seemed to possess an endless amount of martial arts. It was hard to tell whether it was due to the deep heritage of the Tang dynasty, or if Wang Chong was the only one. "You can leave now," Wang Chong said. He didn't intend to leave so quickly, but now he had changed his mind. After leaving the Goguryeo gathering point, Wang Chong didn't return to the Wang family residence. Instead, he headed straight for the King of Song's residence. In the Great Tang Empire, Wang Chong was the only one who could knock on the door of a noble's residence in the middle of the night. "Is what you said true?" In the main hall, the King of Song wore a dark casual robe with a grim expression. He had been woken up from his sleep by Wang Chong. The only person who could do this without being blamed was Wang Chong. "It's true," Wang Chong said as he recounted the events in detail. Of course, there were many things that Wang Chong had added in as well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to win the trust of the King of Song. The King of Song didn't say a word, but his expression was exceptionally grim. There were precedents of Goguryons assassinating influential officials of the Tang dynasty. Even though there was no concrete evidence, all of the clues pointed to the Goguryons. Chapter 238. Regardless of which dynasty it was, the murder of an official was a huge matter. If the Goguryons were to really pull it off, it would be a huge blow to the prestige of the Tang dynasty and the royal court. More importantly, without evidence to prove that the Goguryons were the culprits, the royal court wouldn't be able to make a move against them. The Tang dynasty was a law-abiding nation, and everything was done according to the law. It was impossible for them to massacre the Goguryons in the west of the city just based on groundless evidence. Otherwise, it would cause a chain reaction, and the repercussions would be even greater. Wang Chong, this isn't a small matter. If an official is killed without any evidence, our reputation will be tarnished. We can't allow such a thing to happen. If you have their whereabouts, I can mobilize the city defense army and even request for the Imperial Forest and Imperial Forest to help you suppress the Goguryons. However, the prerequisite is that you have to confirm the time and location of their arrival. Otherwise, if we were to make a move recklessly, we might end up in a disadvantageous position. The King of Song said grimly. He immediately understood the severity of the matter, and he also understood why Wang Chong came to look for him. The Goguryons' movements actually included the Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments, both of which were under his jurisdiction. If the officials of the Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments were to be killed, he would be the first to be apprehended by the Holy Emperor and punished accordingly. He couldn't afford to be careless in the face of such severe consequences. "Just leave this matter to me. I have a way to track them down. But before that, I need your highness to help me with something," Wang Chong said, after which he revealed the matter of the condor shooters in the Goguryeo base. The strength of a condor shooter was no small matter. If one were to barge in without knowing their background, it would be impossible for them to return alive no matter how many people they had. A condor shooter could threaten dozens or even hundreds of experts of the same level, provided that the latter didn't have sufficient protective gear. Only a master archer could deal with a master archer. To deal with such a condor shooter, Wang Chong didn't have enough people around him. Only the King of Song's residence had such experts. "I understand." The King of Song pondered for a moment before nodding. "Leave this matter to me. Go to the side hall and wait. I will arrange for suitable people to help you." "Thank you, Your Highness." After exiting the hall, Wang Chong met the expert arranged by the King of Song in the side hall. A burly man, who was more than 2 meters tall, stood in the hall. He wore a thick armor that looked like an iron bucket. Behind him was a 1.67-meter-long giant metal bow, which was extremely eye-catching. The bowstring used to draw the bow was as thick as a thumb. The thick armor covered his entire body. Other than a pair of cold eyes, nothing else could be seen. From this person, Wang Chong felt an extremely dangerous aura. Even though they were still 6 to 7 zhang away, Wang Chong felt his hair stand on end and his hair stand on end. "He's an expert. A thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind. Someone who could make his scalp go numb with just a glance was definitely an expert among experts. Greetings, young master. The King of Song has ordered me to be at your disposal. A buzzing voice came from under the fort-like armor. The voice was loud but emotionless, as if the person standing in front of Wang Chong was a machine that could not be cold. The nobles of the royal family do have some hidden experts in their residence. They are especially powerful. Wang Chong thought to himself. From his previous life, he knew that there were some especially powerful experts in the royal family who would not appear in front of people easily. The appearance of this sharpshooter was enough to prove this point. Wang Chong visited the King of Song very late at night. From the moment he requested for a sharpshooter expert to the formal acceptance, it only took a moment. The King of Song had already selected a suitable expert for him. How many arrows can you shoot in an instant? Asked Wang Chong, looking at the burly man who was a head taller than him. 104. Wang Chong sucked in a cold breath when he heard the crisp and decisive voice, without the slightest hesitation. This number was twice that of an ordinary sharpshooter. How far can each arrow shoot? Asked Wang Chong again. 17 miles away. Once again it was a surprising answer. How far can one see in the dark, down to the finest detail? Wang Chong said. This time, it involved another concept in archery. The so-called down to the finest detail was to clearly see the lines on the wings of a mosquito or the veins on the back of a leaf. Only when one reached this level could one be said to be able to see the finest detail. This was one of the aspects of archery. It was much more demanding than observing an apple on a tree from several miles away. Because an apple alone was not considered a vein, it was naturally not considered as being able to see the finest detail. This time, the burly man at the corner of the hall hesitated for a moment and did not answer immediately. 267 zhang. The burly man said after a moment of silence. 267 zhang, that was 800 meters. To be able to see the fine lines on the wings of a mosquito from 800 meters away in the dark was already an astounding feat. With such eyesight paired with his astounding cultivation, he would be an invincible threat in the dark. Wang Chong was delighted. Follow me. Bringing the burly man with him, Wang Chong left the King of Song residence. There was still a month before King Sojuram would make his move, so there was more than enough time. On the other hand, with this master archer whom he begged from King Song, Myasame Ayaka, and the experts of the Zhuang and Qi clans, Wang Chong didn't panic. Instead, he began his cultivation plan. In the silent night, the Gogurians' gathering point was as peaceful as ever. So far, the Gogurians hadn't noticed anything at all. Sush. Around a quarter to midnight, a figure leaped over the walls of the residence. Beneath his clothes, 3 protruding swords stood out conspicuously. This was the most obvious symbol of a Gogurian warrior. The night wind blew, and the Gogurian warrior seemed extremely wary. As soon as he landed on the ground, he immediately scanned his surroundings, and after confirming that there was nothing amiss, he quickly walked away. After walking for a while, he soon left the vicinity of the gathering point. While he was walking, he suddenly saw a young man hurrying toward him. Taken aback, a hint of doubt flashed across his eyes. He felt that something was amiss, but he didn't think that he had exposed any flaws, so the other party shouldn't be coming for him. Thus, he continued on his way. It seemed like an insignificant encounter, but just as the two of them were about to brush past each other, an abrupt change occurred. Clang. The sound of a sword being unsheathed suddenly echoed in his ears. Indistinctly, killing intent surged, and a chilling aura enveloped the Gogurian expert like a tidal wave. Not good. The Gogurian expert's face warped in horror, and he subconsciously tried to draw his sword. However, his overconfidence and carelessness had harmed him. A sharp sword chi pierced through his chest, piercing right through his chest and exiting through his back. The blinding radiance of the sword chi even pierced through a large tree behind him. In just an instant, the Gogurian expert was severely injured. Bastard! Alarmed and furious, the Gogurian expert swiftly whipped out 2 black sabers, and at the same time, origin energy burst forth from his body. A ring of white ripples formed from origin energy rippled outward in all directions, reminiscent of the rumbling of metal. Wherever the white ripples passed, the surrounding air would tremble violently, and a sound reminiscent of a tsunami could be heard. Origin Energy Tier 9. At this level, one would be able to release one's inner chi externally, and the white ripples would appear with every movement of one's body. At this level, one would be able to execute the void-splitting palm, void-shattering palm, and even more formidable experts would be able to execute the legendary 100 Steps Divine Fist. Clearly, the Goguryeo expert was an Origin Energy Tier 9 expert. How dare you assault me? You're courting death. The Goguryen's eyes were sharp. With a single glance, he could tell that the young man who assaulted him didn't possess a high cultivation. The other party had only managed to injure him by catching him off guard. However, in the next moment, something unexpected happened. In an instant, the white ripples that the Goguryeo expert had released suddenly vanished, as though the source of life had been sucked dry. This abrupt change disrupted the Goguryeo expert's rhythm. Not only was his body affected, even his origin energy was thrown out of balance. It was as though a pair of invisible shackles had locked down his origin energy, causing his cultivation to plummet from Origin Energy Tier 9 to Origin Energy Tier 8. Chi! In that instant, a blazing sword chi harnessed an aura of destruction and slaughter pierced through his left chest. The two-sword chi had sent him into a state of near death. Puchi! Following which, a bizarrely shaped crimson sword slid through his flesh and pierced into the Goguryeo expert's heart. The battle only lasted for a few breaths before it ended. What in the world is going on? Astonished, the Goguryeo expert fell to his knees. Even at the moment of his death, he had no idea what had happened to his body. Why did the white ripples that he had released suddenly vanish? Why did he suddenly lose control of a portion of his origin energy even though he still had it in his body? How comfortable! So this is the little yin-yang art. Standing before the corpse of the Goguryeo expert, Wang Chong drove the little yin-yang art in his body, and waves of origin energy flowed into his body through the crimson little yin-yang sword. The exhilaration from the growth of origin energy was indescribable. The 84,000 pores on his body felt as though they had opened up, and the origin energy in his body was growing swiftly as well. This was the first time Wang Chong was using the little yin-yang sword given to him by his master, the evil emperor, to absorb another person's origin energy. The feeling was indescribable. It's no wonder why the great yin-yang heaven creation art is labeled as an evil art. This feeling of easily obtaining origin energy is simply too addictive. And once a person is addicted to it, it's easy for them to harbor thoughts of endless slaughter. Thus, those who cultivate this art will become numb to killing, becoming more and more frenzied. In that instant, Wang Chong's mind was clear, and the origin energy in his body grew rapidly. In just a short period of time, it had already surpassed Wang Chong's several months of hard work, leaving Wang Chong in awe. Chapter 239. Congratulations to user for killing 11 Goguryeo warriors. At the same time, a voice sounded in Wang Chong's mind. Along with this voice, a raging wind blew, and invisible origin energy seeped into Wang Chong's body through his limbs and bones. In that instant, Wang Chong could clearly sense that his aura had grown slightly stronger, and the bane of the battlefield halo within him had grown significantly stronger as well. Just a single origin energy Tier 9 Goguryeo warrior had raised Wang Chong's origin energy and halo simultaneously. There was no other way to raise his cultivation faster than this. Using the little yin-yang art to absorb the opponent's origin energy and internal energy, using the sword chi of massacre to subdue the opponent, and through killing the opponent, he would absorb the opponent's internal energy to strengthen the little yin-yang art. Repeating this cycle, Wang Chong's cultivation plan in his previous life was slowly being carried out by his own hands. To think that I thought that the little yin-yang art could only absorb a small portion of the opponent's origin energy when they were severely injured, and that it was a huge flaw. From the looks of it now, this ability is already formidable. Seeing is believing. No matter how much I hear or understand, I can't compare to trying it out with my own eyes. Executing the little yin-yang art was completely different from what he imagined it to be. It wasn't an easy task to absorb all of an opponent's internal energy. At the very least, one had to reach an extremely high level of mastery in order to do so. In comparison, the little yin-yang art's ability to absorb a portion of the opponent's origin energy when they were severely injured and unable to put up any resistance was already incredible. Gongzi, you're even more like an assassin than us. A familiar voice suddenly sounded from behind. On a nearby tree, Xianxia Ayaka, dressed in a nocturnal outfit, slid down from the lush crown of the tree. Her movements were as light as a leopard as she slowly made her way toward Wang Chong. She had been watching from the top of the tree, prepared to make a move the moment the situation turned for the worse. She didn't expect Wang Chong's attack to be so swift and decisive, dealing with the opponent in just a few moves. She didn't even have a chance to make a move. Hee, even if you haven't eaten pork, haven't you seen a pig run? Wang Chong chuckled. Young master? Taken aback, Xianxia Ayaka couldn't help but blush. Wang Chong was clearly referring to her. Ha! Wang Chong laughed heartily. He used a few lines from his previous life to tease Xianxia Ayaka. Let's go and deal with the corpses. Don't let the Gogurians find out. As Wang Chong spoke, he bent down and searched the body of the Origin Energy Tier 9 Gogurian. Soon Wang Chong discovered something. It was a wooden box about 2 fingers wide, and it exuded a faint fragrance. The Gogurian seemed to have placed great importance on it. Wang Chong opened the wooden box, and soon, a golden Gogurian ginseng appeared before his eyes. It's really here. Looking at the ginseng in the wooden box, Wang Chong smiled as if he had expected it. The reason why he ambushed the Gogurian expert wasn't just to cultivate the little yin-yang art and bane of the battlefield. His other objective was the Gogurian ginseng. The Gogurian ginseng was renowned throughout the world, and according to the age of the ginseng, it could be categorized into white and gold. Judging from the color, this ginseng was at least 200 to 300 years old. The Zhuang clan and Qi clan had to put in a lot of effort just to take out a 200 to 300 years old ginseng, and yet, every single one of these Gogurian warriors had one on them. Even though Gogurian's territory isn't large, it has quite a few experts. These Gogurian ginseng sure have contributed a lot. Looking at the ginseng in his hand, Wang Chong couldn't help but sigh. Just by picking an Origin Energy Tier 9 Gogurian warrior, he was able to find a 200 to 300 years old ginseng on him. From this, it was clear how wealthy Gogurian was. With these deep fire ginseng, the Gogurian Empire could easily mass-produce experts. Just like harvesting chives, he plucked them wave after wave. Placing the ginseng back into the wooden box, Wang Chong stuffed it into his robe, turned around, and left. Not too long after he left, the battlefield was cleaned up. The corpses and bloodstains were all wiped clean. Even the traces of battle were wiped clean. In the following period of time, Wang Chong spent his days ambushing the Gogurians who were traveling between the stronghold and the other areas of the capital. Wang Chong had long realized that this stronghold was in close contact with the Gogurians in the west of the capital. Every day, there would be a different group of people coming and going. As long as he chose a suitable time to ambush them along the way, he would be able to accomplish it without anyone noticing. Of course, the Gogurians didn't lack experts either, and those true martial realm experts were more than enough to crush Wang Chong easily. Thus, Wang Chong chose his opponents carefully, choosing only Origin Energy Tier 9 experts. As for the others, he didn't touch a single true martial realm expert. At the very least, he wouldn't touch them at his current cultivation realm. 1, 2, 3. Wang Chong ambushed the Gogurian warriors one after another, strengthening his bane of the battlefield halo and the origin energy in his body. At the same time, the ginseng collected from the Gogurian warriors was also consumed by Wang Chong, nourishing the origin energy in Wang Chong's body. Wang Chong could feel his strength growing stronger and stronger, and he was getting closer and closer to Origin Energy Tier 8. Days passed, but Wang Chong wasn't in a hurry. He made use of this rare opportunity to strengthen himself. The amount of Origin Energy required to advance from Origin Energy Tier 7 to Origin Energy Tier 8 was far greater than any of the previous tiers. The higher one's realm, the more origin energy one would require. In fact, the amount of origin energy required could even be multiplied. Amidst the darkness, a loud bellow sounded. In an instant, 3 black sabers charged out from the forest like a massive spinning top, slicing toward Wang Chong. So, without any hesitation, Wang Chong executed the single consecutive slash and somersaulted in midair, dodging the lightning strike by a hair's breadth. 2 dazzling sword chi, each as thick as a finger, filled with killing intent and destruction, shot out from between Wang Chong's fingers as he somersaulted. These 2 sword chi were incomparably sharp. The first pierced through the flood of stellar energy and pierced through the Goguryeo warrior's left chest, while the second pierced through his right chest. 2 consecutive surges of sword chi struck down the Goguryeo cultivator. What kind of sword chi is this? Amidst the forest, the Goguryeo warrior bellowed in disbelief. The flood of stellar energy of an origin energy tier 9 cultivator was powerful enough to shatter boulders and deflect even the attacks of swords and sabers. Yet, it was unable to dodge those 2 inconspicuous sword chi. But before he could even react, Puchi, Wang Chong leaped up from the tree branch and flew back. The little yin-yang sword pierced into the Goguryeo warrior's body. Congratulations to user for killing 20 Goguryeo warriors. A voice filled with anticipation sounded by Wang Chong's ear. Hong Long, the surrounding air vibrated, and an indiscernible surge of origin energy gathered from the surroundings. Wang Chong wasn't unfamiliar with the bane of the battlefield aura, but there was something different this time around. Wang Chong could clearly sense that the rate and duration of the origin energy surging into his body had increased significantly, and it was completely different from before. Not only so, along with the influx of origin energy, Wang Chong felt the bane of the battlefield aura in his body jolting, and the aura it emanated also changed slightly. It became denser and heavier. As expected, when the number of enemy soldiers I kill reaches an integer of 10, 20, or 30, the energy I absorb from the surroundings will undergo a qualitative change. Regardless of whether it's the intensity of the origin energy absorbed or the duration of the absorption, it will increase significantly. Surges of origin energy gushed into Wang Chong's body from the Goguryeo warrior's body, and while feeling the increase in origin energy, Wang Chong slowly closed his eyes and nodded in realization. Back then, during the night assault, Wang Chong had noticed that there would be a change in the absorption of origin energy when the number of enemies he killed reached an integer. However, he wasn't able to verify it back then. Now that he had verified it, it was indeed the case. Gongzi, the Goguryans are getting more and more wary. Behind him, Mayasame Ayaka walked out from the forest. Glancing at Wang Chong's back, a hint of admiration flashed across her eyes. Wang Chong had already simplified his assassination methods, turning them into a model that would allow him to become more efficient. His battle with the Goguryans had never lasted too long before Wang Chong started. Most of the time, the battle would end in just a few rounds. Of course, this was also due to the fact that such an ambush wasn't suitable for a prolonged battle. Otherwise, if the Goguryans in the base were to be alarmed, Wang Chong's identity would be exposed. Those fellows are indeed getting more and more wary. They must have noticed something. Wang Chong raised his head and remarked. He should have been the one to make the first move, but the Goguryeo was the one who made the first move. This was the first time such a situation had occurred. If not for the massive increase in his fighting prowess over the past dozen days, he wouldn't have been able to match up to his initial strength. It would have been impossible for the battle to end so quickly. Gong Yu, aren't you curious as to why I never allow you to interfere? Wang Chong suddenly turned around and glanced at Mayasame Ayaka. Gong Yu wouldn't dare. Wang Chong replied with a smile that didn't seem like a smile, but Mayasame Ayaka's heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly lowered her head. She wasn't a fool. In just half a month, Wang Chong's cultivation was already higher than what others would achieve in a year. The powerful sword chi at his fingertips and the inexplicable weakening of his opponents all pointed to the fact that there was something invisible at play in the battle. Gong Yu's cultivation was even higher than Wang Chong's, so she could sense that the aura of this young master of the Tang dynasty would rise significantly every time he killed an opponent. It would be a miracle if she said that there was nothing amiss here. Chapter 240. Translated by Hypersheep 325. Edited by Mikeir. Wang Chong chuckled. Mayasame Ayaka was much smarter than he had thought. I guess there's no need for me to say anything then. Wang Chong thought. It was impossible for the Gogurians to not notice the disappearance of so many of their men. Wang Chong knew that it would be more and more difficult to ambush them. Gongzi, what should we do next? Kneeling on the floor, Mayasame Ayaka asked with a lowered head. Hehe, since this place is already guarded, let's change our location. Mayasame, have you memorized the faces of those Gogurians? Wang Chong said. Yes. Every single one of the Gogurian soldiers that we have discovered has been tailed. Mayasame Ayaka replied respectfully. Even though they had been targeting this Gogurian base, Wang Chong and the others had their own plans as well. All of the Gogurian soldiers that Wang Chong had identified had been tailed. Every single one of them had been recorded down in detail. Even though they had only discovered this Gogurian base initially, they had discovered more and more as time went by. As the saying goes, a crafty rabbit has 3 burrows. In a place like the capital, the Gogurians had far more than just this one. Are we going to head to another place now? Mayasame Ayaka raised her head and asked. There's no rush. Wang Chong chuckled and waved his hands. Since he had already killed so many Gogurians, he decided to rest for the time being. There was another matter that he had to attend to. Chonga, you're here. In Big Uncle Wang Zhen's residence, deep into the night, Wang Zhen, dressed in a loose robe with a hairpin on his head, was seated in the main hall with a benevolent look on his face. In front of him was a porcelain plate, and on the plate were 2 cups of fragrant tea. The cups were still warm, and the fragrance of the tea wafted into the air. On top of that, there were 5 exquisite desserts placed on the sandalwood table. From the looks of it, Wang Zhen seemed to have known that Wang Chong would be coming. Big Uncle. Wang Chong faintly smiled and respectfully bowed. It had been more than a month since they last met, and Big Uncle's complexion was rosy. His complexion was extraordinary, and he seemed to be in good health. Even the invisible aura he exuded had increased significantly. Congratulations, Big Uncle. Looks like you're going to be promoted again. Wang Chong grinned. Brat, what nonsense are you spouting? At our level, taking a step forward is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. How could it be that easy? Big Uncle Wang Zhen scolded jokingly. His actions had become much more amiable. In the past, he would never have dared to joke around with Wang Chong, but now, he found this nephew of his more and more pleasing to the eye. It was impossible for Wang Chong to say that he would be promoted. However, his authority in the imperial court was indeed growing stronger and stronger. This was inseparable from Wang Chong. The regional commander's incident that Wang Chong had stirred up had come to an end. Even though there had been some twists and turns along the way, in the end, the Wang clan's prestige had risen once more, and its influence had grown significantly as well. The Wang clan and Song clan had been on good terms for 3 generations, and with the reinstatement of the king of Song, the Wang clan had benefited as well. It was only natural that Wang Zhen's standing in the imperial court would rise. You're here for the matter regarding Yang Zhao, right? Wang Zhen asked. Wang Chong chuckled. Big Uncle, what's the current situation in the imperial court? What else can it be? Xianxia Jianxiong is currently a ferocious dragon crossing the river. Who wouldn't be suspicious of the sudden intrusion of a border official? It has never been an easy feat to get to the imperial court from this place. It would be a wonder if he could get in so easily. Wang Zhen took a sip of tea and tapped the table beside him with a finger. Wang Chong nodded and sat down beside Big Uncle Wang Zhen with a smile. Chong, let me ask you one more time. Are you sure that Xianxia Jianxiong will be able to enter the imperial court? Wang Zhen put down his teacup and asked grimly. This matter was of great importance, so he had to get to the bottom of it. Of course, it's because that person wants him to go up. Wang Chong pointed to the sky and smiled. Wang Zhen frowned. He was an intelligent person, so he immediately understood what was going on. By pointing to the sky, it went without saying that Wang Chong was referring to the Holy Emperor. Given the Holy Emperor's standing, he shouldn't have anything to do with Xianxia Jianxiong. After all, even though Xianxia Jianxiong had presided over Jiannan for several decades, he hadn't contributed much to the empire. At the very most, he had only managed to ensure the peace of the region. Given his achievements, it was impossible for him to enter the Bureau of Military Personnel. Since this wasn't the intention of the Holy Emperor, there was only one person left. Consort Taizhen. This thought flashed across Wang Zhen's mind. Consort Taizhen and Yang Zhao were cousins, and Yang Zhao was on good terms with Xianxia Jianxiong. It wasn't hard to imagine the relationship between the two. The Holy Emperor had never been interested in women, but for some reason he was extremely fond of this consort Taizhen. In fact, he even made an exception to stand against the entire royal court for her, and even the king of Song was demoted. If consort Taizhen wanted Xianxia Jianxiong to enter the capital, it would be the will of the Holy Emperor. No matter how inexperienced Xianxia Jianxiong was, no matter how many people were against him, he would still be able to enter the capital. Chong. Looking at the young Wang Chong before him, a complicated gleam flashed across Wang Zhen's eyes. Wang Chong might be young, but for some reason he possessed talent in the royal court that left even his uncle in awe. If it was in the past, Wang Zhen might have felt a little jealous. But now, it was truly a blessing for the Wang clan to have such a Qilin son. I know what I should do now. Wang Zhen nodded. I'll make a move tomorrow and officially support Xianxia Jianxiong. Those bastards in the royal court sure are cunning. They are probably waiting for someone else to step in. Wang Chong snickered inside. Others might be like that, but Big Uncle was the same as well. Right, Big Uncle, where did Cousin Yen go? Wang Chong said. But you don't know? Wang Zhen frowned in bewilderment. Zhu Yen went to Shunwei training camp. Didn't she tell you about this? Wang Chong shook his head. Initially, he thought that this second sister of his would come to Kunwu. Little did he expect that she would go to the even more impressive Shunwei training camp. She really didn't care about him, her little brother, at all. But thinking about it, this was indeed something she would do. After leaving Big Uncle's residence, Wang Chong headed straight for the Falling Jade Pavilion. It had been 2 months since he last visited the Alchemist's Secret Alliance. Adding it all up, he could already afford 6 pills. To Wang Chong, these powerful pills of the royal court were the best tools for him to raise his cultivation. After paying a hefty fee, Wang Chong successfully obtained what he wanted from Liu Zhizhang. 4 elixirs that could increase one's cultivation, and 2 healing elixirs. After receiving these pills, Wang Chong didn't return to the Wang clan. Instead, he swallowed them on the spot. Boom! After swallowing 4 pills consecutively, Wang Chong's aura surged, and in a short period of time, he was already infinitely close to reaching Origin Energy Tier 8. Boom! A deafening explosion sounded, and the bones in Wang Chong's body creaked. The tide like Yuan Qi was vast and mighty, rushing through all of his bones and muscles. For a moment, Wang Chong felt like the thunder in the distance had grown much louder. His eyes lit up. The darkness before him seemed to have lightened. Congratulations, Gongzi, you finally reached Origin Energy Tier 8. In the Falling Jade Pavilion, Mayasame Ayaka knelt on the floor respectfully. She immediately sensed the changes in Wang Chong's body, and she understood Wang Chong's plan. The reason why Wang Chong stopped his plan was because he wanted to use the pills here to reach Origin Energy Tier 8. With a cultivation of Origin Energy Tier 8, it would be much easier for him to carry out the assassination later on. Hee, that's right. I've finally reached it. Feeling the raging energy in his body, Wang Chong couldn't help but feel delighted. Upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 8, one's eye of discernment and strength would be enhanced significantly. More importantly, once he reached Origin Energy Tier 8, he would be able to cultivate a speed-type secret art on top of agility-type cultivation techniques. Strength, speed, and dexterity. To a true martial artist, none of these were lacking. With just the Spectre steps, Mayasame Ayaka was able to become a top-notch assassin. On the other hand, Wang Chong would only grow stronger. Sharpening the axe won't delay the work of chopping wood. Raising his speed, strength, and dexterity would make dealing with the Gogurians much easier. In the remaining time, Wang Chong continued to work hard and raised his might of the barbaric god to 8 Dan. At this point, Wang Chong's strength and explosiveness had already reached the level of an Origin Energy Tier 9 primary stage expert. Even without using the sword chi of Massacre, he was still able to match up to an expert of this level. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, Wang Chong pondered for a moment before deciding on a speed-type cultivation technique for himself. Phantom Steps. This secret art was similar to Mayasame Ayaka's Spectre Steps in that it was soundless and incomparably fast. However, unlike Mayasame Ayaka's, Phantom Steps didn't have a huge flaw like Spectre Steps, and it wouldn't result in severe injuries or death. In Wang Chong's memories, this was an extremely mature movement technique. Surges of origin energy surged within Wang Chong's body. Unlike any other cultivation technique he had cultivated before, the origin energy in Wang Chong's body circulated once around his body before rushing toward the acupoints and meridians in his legs like a raging river. It was impossible for a person to walk with their hands, so regardless of whether it was Spectre Steps or Phantom Steps, the most crucial acupoints and meridians were located in the legs. This was the first time Wang Chong was cultivating a speed-type secret art, and the process wasn't easy. However, using the undigested medicinal energy from the 4 pills he had just consumed, Wang Chong successfully cleared a large portion of the meridians and acupoints in his legs. Pung ping pung. Innumerable profound entrances and acupoints burst open. 2 days later. So, with a flash of light, a silhouette flitted across the room and through the door, disappearing from the room. Before Mayasame Ayaka could react, she saw a familiar silhouette not too far away. Gogongzi. Seeing Wang Chong suddenly appear under the moonlight, Mayasame Ayaka was astonished. Her eyes were wide open as she stared in disbelief at the nearby Wang Chong. She was a natural-born assassin, and her perception was even sharper than Wang Chong's. But just a moment ago, she didn't even notice how Wang Chong had disappeared from the room and passed by her. In fact, even at such a close distance, she couldn't sense Wang Chong's aura at all. Even if she were to see him with her eyes, she would find his silhouette blurry, unable to see him clearly. What kind of cultivation technique is this? Mayasame Ayaka was astonished. Chapter 241. Hee Mayasame, try and catch me. Wang Chong turned around and smiled, revealing a row of snow-white teeth amidst the darkness. Gongzi, I won't stand on ceremony then. Hearing Wang Chong's words, Mayasame Ayaka chuckled. She was also interested to see how much Wang Chong had improved after his breakthrough. Even though Wang Chong's movement technique seemed to be even more profound than hers, Mayasame Ayaka was still confident that she could take him down. After all, the difference in strength between the two of them was clear for all to see. Even though Wang Chong had crossed blows with her twice, neither of them were fair and square. The first time was through trickery, and the second time was when she was severely injured by Li Zhuxin. In terms of strength, Mayasame Ayaka wasn't inferior to Wang Chong. Gongzi, I'm coming. Mayasame Ayaka smiled, and the corners of her eyes curled up slightly. So, without any warning, the light at the entrance warped for a moment, and like a specter, Mayasame Ayaka melted into the void, vanishing from the spot. To comprehend the essence of the specter steps, one would be akin to a specter wandering in the night, making it difficult for one to discern it with the naked eye. Even experts stronger than oneself would only be able to see a faint shadow, reminiscent of a transparent specter. This was also the origin of the name Specter Steps. Gongzi, I've caught you. Just a few feet from Wang Chong, Mayasame Ayaka revealed a victorious smile beneath her black veil. Even though Wang Chong was talented, he was still far from matching up to her. Mayasame, are you certain? A light chuckle sounded in the darkness. The source of the chuckle was erratic, but it didn't originate from where Mayasame Ayaka was standing. Mayasame Ayaka's face warped. She immediately knew that the situation had changed. Shwa. In an instant, Mayasame Ayaka's speed abruptly increased, and she abruptly reached out to grab Wang Chong. However, a flash of light abruptly appeared, and Mayasame Ayaka's grasp missed. He disappeared? Mayasame Ayaka's eyes narrowed as her face warped in shock. She didn't think that her sure-kill attack would actually fail. She was also a true martial realm expert, so she immediately understood the meaning behind this strike. For Wang Chong to be able to dodge her attack in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint, there was only one way to do it, and that was if his speed was faster than hers. How is this possible? Mayasame Ayaka's eyes were filled with disbelief. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Although she never dared to look down on Wang Chong, this fact was too shocking. But what was even more shocking was that just 3 zhang away, Mayasame Ayaka saw 3 identical Wang Chong, and all 3 of them were smiling at her. "Young master, how did you do it?" Mayasame Ayaka exclaimed in shock. These 3 Wang Chong didn't exude the slightest aura, and with Mayasame Ayaka's sharp senses, it was impossible for her to discern them. This is called phantom steps. Even further away, in the darkness, Wang Chong appeared from beneath another broken wall. The moment he appeared, the 3 phantoms vanished as well. What you see are only my remnant phantoms. My cultivation is still lacking, so I can only leave behind 3 phantoms at the same time. If I were stronger, I would be able to split into 12, 20, or even 60 to 70 phantoms. With his hands behind his back, Wang Chong walked out from beneath the broken wall with a confident and composed expression. "But why haven't I heard of it before?" Mayasame Ayaka asked doubtfully. "It would be a wonder if you knew." Wang Chong chuckled inwardly. Of course, the true phantom steps wasn't as formidable as this. However, Wang Chong had modified it to a certain extent, fusing it with the tortoise-breathing art. This made up for the weakness of phantoms being easily seen through. After all, even the aura of Wang Chong couldn't be detected, needless to say, these 3 phantoms. Mayasame Ayaka was perplexed, but it was true that Wang Chong's cultivation technique was formidable. "Let's go. I might need your help this time." Without saying anything else, Wang Chong turned around and walked into the depths of the darkness. Having reached Origin Energy Tier 8 and successfully cultivated the Phantom Steps, Wang Chong's agility, speed, and strength were all at the same time. At this point, he had already achieved minor accomplishment in his martial arts. And now, Wang Chong was determined to challenge the difficulty of the second Gogurian base. "I should head to the second Gogurian base to take a look." A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind, and he soon disappeared into the darkness. Deep in the night, at 4 o'clock in the morning, the capital was quiet as everyone slept soundly. Other than the patrolling Imperial Army soldiers and drunkards, there was no one else on the streets. In a remote area in the northeast corner of the capital, a one-eyed fatty, dressed in a wide-sleeved robe and the attire of a minister-counselor, was walking over from the edge. Even though he was disguised as an ordinary merchant, his footsteps were forceful. His muscular arms were subconsciously placed on his waist, which was completely incompatible with his disguise. All of a sudden, a loud noise was heard. The one-eyed fatty's body tensed up, and he immediately turned his gaze toward the source of the sound warily. Not too far away, a 15 to 16-year-old youngster suddenly walked out from the forest. That youngster was leaning against a tree trunk with his arms crossed, and a cold sneer appeared on his face. "Gogurian!" The youngster's lips moved, and he suddenly uttered 4 words in Gogurian. Hearing these 4 words, the one-eyed fatty's expression changed dramatically, as if he had been greatly humiliated, and his expression suddenly became ferocious. "Bastard!" There was no one around. The one-eyed fatty gritted his teeth and with a wah sound, he took off the minister-counselor's robe and removed the Han disguise on his body. Beneath the loose robe, 3 Gogurian sabers were revealed as well. "You're courting death." The one-eyed fatty's face turned cold. Holding the 3rd saber under his ribs, his movements were inconceivably agile. Shwa! The moment he took off his outer robe, the one-eyed fatty stomped on the ground and charged toward Wang Chong like an arrow released from a bow. In an instant, he covered a distance of 12 zhang. In that instant, the one-eyed fatty's speed was inconceivable. Seeing the one-eyed fatty's superior martial arts, the youngster seemed to have been frightened. His body trembled, and he hurriedly retreated into the forest. "You're only thinking of escaping now? It's too late." The one-eyed fatty was as swift as a blink of an eye, and killing intent burst forth from his remaining eye. Shua shua. Before he could even reach the other party, two incomparably sharp saber chi were already flying toward him. Kacha! Two massive trees abruptly snapped, and the cracks were as smooth as a mirror. Die! The saber chi was swift, but the one-eyed fatty was even faster. In the blink of an eye, he had already entered the forest. Almost at the same instant the one-eyed fatty entered the forest, two figures charged toward him from the left and right. Mayasame Ayaka's speed was incredible, and the dagger in her hand shot toward the one-eyed fatty. At the same time, Wang Chong executed phantom steps and arrived at the same time. Chi, without any hesitation, a blinding sword chi of massacre burst forth from the tip of the little yin-yang sword. Boom! The one-eyed fatty reacted swiftly. Almost at the same instant that Wang Chong executed the sword chi of massacre, he released his Jun Chi, and a powerful deluge of stellar energy burst forth. Unlike the deluge of stellar energy of an Origin Energy Tier 9 expert, the one-eyed fatty's stellar energy was clearly much stronger. Jolted by the deluge of stellar energy, Wang Chong's sword chi of massacre weakened significantly. However, the sword chi of massacre was still invincible. Even the stellar energy of a true martial realm expert was able to pierce through it. You brat, to think that you still have such a move. The one-eyed fatty sensed that something was amiss. Without even thinking, he slashed out with his saber. Boom! A saber chi directly shattered Wang Chong's sword chi of massacre. At the same time, he slashed out with his hand, and a saber sword flew toward Wang Chong. Saber chi! Wang Chong was astonished. Unlike the other Gogrian warriors he had come into contact with before, this fatty had actually managed to cultivate saber chi. His slaughter sword chi was shaken by the astral chi and then slashed by the saber chi, causing it to dissipate. Whew! With no time to think, Wang Chong had no choice but to dodge the other party's powerful saber chi. A true martial realm expert possessed incredible strength, and he wasn't a match for them at the moment. Tonglong. Almost at the same instant that Wang Chong was sent flying, a saber chi struck the spot where Wang Chong had been standing a moment ago. With a loud boom, dirt flew into the air, and a crack of 6 to 7 zhang long appeared on the ground. Ah! At the same instant that Wang Chong dodged, Mayasame Ayaka also clashed with the one-eyed fatty. With a chi sound, the clothes on the one-eyed fatty's shoulder were torn apart, revealing a deep wound several inches deep. However, with a loud bellow, the one-eyed fatty's 3 sabers dashed forward like a whirlwind. Using his ferocious aura and vicious fighting style, he was actually able to suppress Mayasame Ayaka. As an assassin, Mayasame Ayaka specialized in agility, speed, and killing with a single blow. She was completely different from warriors like the one-eyed fatty, who preferred to fight head-on. Facing the one-eyed fatty's ferocious fighting style, Mayasame Ayaka was actually unable to utilize her footwork for the time being. She could only use the specter steps to change her position. That fellow is strong. When Wang Chong saw this sight, he was inwardly shocked. This was the first time he was facing a true martial realm expert as an Origin Energy Realm cultivator. The one-eyed fatty was far more difficult to deal with than he had expected. From the looks of it, Mayasame Ayaka didn't have much of a chance against Zhang Xian's ruthless 3-saber stream, where he was risking his life for his own. Without any hesitation, Wang Chong executed the phantom steps and executed the hexad arms technique. This time, a single sword chi split into 6, and each of them was as thick as a finger, shooting toward different parts of the one-eyed fatty's body. On the other side, Mayasame Ayaka had also pushed the specter steps to its limits, and she surrounded the one-eyed fatty, launching a flurry of attacks at him. Haha, you two fellows, do you think that you can deal with me just like that? That halo of swamp. All of a sudden, a burst of laughter echoed in the ears of the duo. Before he could finish his words, the aura around the one-eyed fatty abruptly changed, and a halo accompanied by stellar energy burst forth. However, unlike the green halo of thorns that Wang Chong had seen before, the halo beneath the one-eyed fatty's feet was actually gray in color. Chapter 242. Not good. Upon seeing this halo, Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka's faces warped. They knew that they had kicked a metal plate this time around. The halo of Meyer was a mutated halo unique to Goguryeo. In essence, it was a strength halo, but due to the unique environment of Goguryeo, it came with the muddy effect. Not only could it boost one's strength, it could also slow down the movements of one's opponents. Only a handful of elites in Goguryeo possessed such a halo. Wang Chong had intended for Mayasame Ayaka to pick the weaker true martial realm cultivators, but from the looks of it, she had miscalculated. Gongzi, be careful. Mayasame Ayaka also realized that she had made a mistake in her judgment. The other party was clearly much stronger than she had thought. It seemed like she had made a mistake. Ha, you two thieves. Recently, a dozen or so cultivators suddenly vanished from the face of the earth in the first base. I don't know if they're still alive or dead. You must be the culprit, right? The one-eyed fatty laughed heartily, but this time he spoke in the language of the Central Plains. His only eye was bright and shrewd. He wasn't a fool. He could tell that the two fellows before him were intentionally provoking him to lure him here. Thinking back to the disappearance of the warriors not too long ago, he could already guess what was going on. Die! The one-eyed fatty roared in laughter. Around him, mountains collapsed and tsunamis roared. The air seemed to be stirred up by an invisible force, and as though tons of mud, it charged toward Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka with the might of a thunderbolt. The halo of a true martial realm expert wasn't just for show. It harnessed the laws of nature, allowing one to tap into the power of nature and exert strength far beyond one's own. At this moment, his strength had completely suppressed Mayasame Ayaka and Wang Chong. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time that he activated the halo of Meyer, the one-eyed fatty laughed heartily. With 3 sabers in his hands, he charged toward Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka with the momentum of a thunderbolt. He had intentionally waited for Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka to approach him before activating the halo of swamp. He wanted to catch them off guard and trap them within his power of swamp, preventing them from escaping. For at least 10 breaths, Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka wouldn't be able to escape swiftly. 10 breaths were enough to do a lot of things. Pay with your life for the warriors of the empire. The one-eyed fatty seemed to have gone berserk, and his 3 broadswords rained down on Mayasame Ayaka and Wang Chong. In just an instant, Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka had fallen into a bitter battle. Be it Mayasame Ayaka's Spectre Steps or Wang Chong's Phantom Steps, they were both outstanding speed-type secret arts. However, the one-eyed fatty's Quagmire Aura coincidentally countered them. The more powerful a speed-type absolute art was, the faster its speed would decrease when it encountered an external environment that restrained it. For example, if an ordinary person were to fall into a swamp, the most they would be able to do was to shift. On the other hand, if a swift cheetah were to fall into a swamp, its speed would be reduced by a significant amount. This was the situation that Wang Chong and Mayasame Ayaka were in at the moment. Yeet! A sharp whistle suddenly sounded from afar. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat. This was the signal that he had agreed upon with the master archer sent by the King of Song. As long as he responded with a sharp whistle, the other party would immediately reinforce him from afar. Given that fellow's strength, there was a high chance that he would severely injure the Goguryeo elite. But Wang Chong didn't want to do so. All master archers were prideful individuals, and the more formidable they were, the more arrogant they were. If he were to fail in his first challenge against a true martial realm opponent, the other party would surely look down on him. As long as he harbored such thoughts, it wouldn't be easy to mobilize him in the future. And Wang Chong still had many opportunities to mobilize him in the future. No matter what, I have to find a way to defeat him first. If I'm not a match for him, it won't be too late to get him to make a move then. Wang Chong thought. The master archer at the rear was an important force in his plan. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Wang Chong didn't want to use him easily. Besides, if he were to make the other party look down on him, it would be fine under normal circumstances. However, if he were to make a mistake in a critical situation where he needed his help, he would lose his life. So, Wang Chong executed the single-character consecutive slash and by a hair's breadth, he dodged the fatty's 2 consecutive slashes. While dodging, Wang Chong still managed to send out 2 surges of sword chi of massacre, but they were all blocked by the other party's sword chi. The other party's halo of Bog was extremely powerful, and it had an obvious effect on phantom steps. However, Wang Chong didn't just have phantom steps. His single-character consecutive slash was propelled by his origin energy, so it wasn't as affected by the air Bog. On the other hand, Mayasame Ayaka's martial arts were superior to Wang Chong's, but at this moment, the restriction on her was greater than Wang Chong's. Under the control of the one-eyed fatty, the air swamp struck the ground like a heavy mountain, causing rumbling sounds to echo in the air. Mayasame Ayaka staggered, and her body was drenched in sweat. Unable to react in time, the saber chi struck her left shoulder, tearing it apart and tearing a deep gash in it. Fresh blood spurted out from the wound. "Ah, lass, you must be from the Eastern Islands, right? The people of the Central Plains aren't like you." "Hee, once I capture you, I'll bring you back to the base to enjoy myself." The one-eyed fatty roared with laughter. Mayasame Ayaka was both embarrassed and furious. A single mistake had resulted in her being struck once more. "Mayasame, left, 3 Siyuan below my waist." At this moment, a firm and decisive voice suddenly sounded in her ears. Mayasame Ayaka's mind was in a mess, but upon hearing this voice, it was as if she had been infused with energy, and her mind suddenly cleared up. 3 Siyuan below my waist? Brat, do you think that you can succeed? Upon hearing Wang Chong's words, the one-eyed fatty's body tensed up as he instinctively felt threatened. But in the next instant he burst into laughter. With his current strength, it was impossible for the two of them to get close to him. Even if they were to discover his weakness, it would be futile. "Brat, your martial arts might not be high, but your movement technique sure is slippery. I was thinking of killing her first before killing you. But since you want to die so badly, I'll grant your wish." The one-eyed fatty's face was savage, and he abruptly turned his head around. Wang Chong's words had roused his killing intent. Even if he had to suffer a few slashes from Mayasame Ayaka, he would kill this fellow who threatened him first. "I would like to see how you're going to stab 3 Siyun below my left waist." Hong Long, the world spun. In an instant, a huge amount of muddy air, along with the 3 Gogrian sabers, stirred up a powerful wave of stellar energy and charged toward Wang Chong at lightning speed. This attack was as powerful as a tsunami crashing onto the shore. If he were to be struck, Wang Chong would surely die. In the face of the one-eyed fatty's murderous move, Wang Chong remained standing on the spot, the corners of his lips curling into a cold smile. The reason why he didn't allow the archers to make a move was because he still had a trump card up his sleeves. In the next instant, without any hesitation, Wang Chong released the bane of the battlefield halo. Wang, a formless ripple spread out. There was no movement in the surroundings, but there seemed to be the rumbling of thunder in the depths of the void. Before the one-eyed fatty could react, a strange white ripple appeared around his body. When the white ripples appeared, that unique power exploded in the void. Boom! Without the slightest warning, at least 2/3 of the muddy air that the one-eyed fatso had conjured suddenly exploded. It was a feeling of power being sucked out. Even the yuan qi in the one-eyed fatso's body suddenly stagnated, pausing for a moment. As for the surrounding origin energy of the mud, it was also greatly weakened. The one-eyed fatty was so frightened that his soul left his body, and his entire face turned pale. He had been stationed in the Central Plains for 6 to 7 years now, but he had never encountered such a situation. This kind of situation where his strength was reduced, which he had never experienced before, simply caught him off guard. For his origin energy to suddenly go out of control in the midst of an intense battle, he understood what it meant. It was precisely because of this that his face turned even paler. In a battle between experts, every second counted. Why would there be such a huge opening? This is a good chance. Sensing the change in the surrounding origin energy of the mud, Mayasame Ayaka immediately grasped this rare opportunity. Puchi! Fresh blood splattered as a dagger stabbed 3 inches below the left side of the one-eyed fatty's waist. The dagger had pierced in from one side and came out from the other. Puchi. At the same time, Wang Chong's sword chi of massacre pierced through the right side of the one-eyed fatty's chest. After the sword chi, Wang Chong's phantom movement art reached its maximum speed, and the little yin-yang sword pierced through the one-eyed fatty's heart. Ah! The one-eyed fatty's only eye widened in shock. His hands were still in an offensive stance, and his face was filled with disbelief. Even in death, he didn't understand how he had died. How could such an inconceivable phenomenon occur? Along with the one-eyed fatty's death, a vast surge of origin energy more powerful than any he had felt before flowed into Wang Chong's body through the little yin-yang sword. Ah! Closing his eyes, Wang Chong exclaimed softly. Nourished by this surge of energy, Wang Chong felt his blood boiling. What incredible strength! A true martial realm cultivator was far superior to an origin energy realm cultivator. Wang Chong could feel that the benefits he had received far exceeded any of his previous experiences. The intensity of his origin energy had grown significantly, and the speed at which it flowed had also increased significantly. Even his strength had grown significantly. This was something that Wang Chong's bitter cultivation couldn't compare to. The great yin-yang heaven creation art was known as the #1 cultivation technique in the world, and Wang Chong had already comprehended its profundities. There was no cultivation technique in the world that could raise one's cultivation faster than this. At this rate, I should be able to advance my cultivation to Origin Energy Tier 9 in less than a month. Wang Chong thought. Upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 9, one would be able to externalize one's origin energy, and Wang Chong would be able to cultivate even more advanced martial arts, such as the 100 Steps Divine Fist. Furthermore, upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 9 Pinnacle, one would be able to comprehend the power of laws, and one would be able to convert origin energy into stellar energy. Every single move of his would produce white ripples, and along with the tremors, the might of his attacks would be enhanced significantly. On the path of martial arts, Origin Energy Tier 1 would be nothing more than a toddler learning to walk. Only upon reaching Origin Energy Tier 9 would one be considered to have reached Origin Energy Major Accomplishment, and only then would one be able to reach higher and stronger realms. Chapter 243. Mayasame Ayaka was keenly aware of the changes in Wang Chong. However, she was smart enough not to ask about it. Gongzi, the situation is getting complicated. It seems like the Gogurians are starting to suspect something. Mayasame Ayaka said with a hint of worry in her eyes. No matter how discreet the two of them were, the Gogurians weren't fools. It would be a wonder if they didn't suspect something when so many of their men had vanished without a trace. Wang Chong discreetly retracted his little yin-yang art, and a dark cloud flashed across his forehead. But very soon, Wang Chong regained his composure. Hee, what's the point of thinking so much? We'll just deal with whatever comes our way. Even if the Gogurians have their suspicions, they don't know how they died or where they died in the city. This is also the reason why I chose to make a move after they left the base. As long as we don't make a move in their base, they won't be able to ascertain whether we have discovered their base or not. In fact, they might even think that it was a coincidence. Wang Chong said. The Gogurians were too confident. They thought that the Tang dynasty wouldn't be able to find them. After all, the Gogurians had always kept a distance between the light and the dark. Those in the light wouldn't do anything that went against the laws of the Tang dynasty. Even if the Tang dynasty sent men to monitor them 24 hours a day, they would only realize that they were the most obedient citizens. On the other hand, those in the dark would disguise themselves as merchants, bodyguards, and so on. They would frequent the taverns, and gambling dens of the Gogurians, and they would try their best not to speak. If they were to speak, they would only speak in the language of the Central Plains. This way, even if the royal court were to find them, it would be impossible for them to do so. Thus, it would be impossible for them to find their base. This was because their base wasn't in the Gogurian territory in the west of the city. This was what the Gogurians were proud of and confident of. They made full use of the weakness of the Bureau of Military Personnel and Bureau of Punishments. However, to Wang Chong, The pride and self-confidence that they had developed over a long period of time was exactly what he could use. No matter how many people he killed, as long as he didn't kill anyone in the base, Wang Chong wasn't afraid that they would find out. Even if they had their suspicions, Wang Chong was not afraid. However, as long as they have doubts, they will be more cautious in the future. In the future, it might not be so easy. Mayasame Ayaka disagreed. The Goguryans wielded great influence in the Central Plains, surpassing all other powers aside from the Tang dynasty. If he didn't have some ability, it would be impossible. So be it. The enemy is out in the open and we are in the dark. Do you think that we can't defeat them with our strength? Don't forget, we also have a lot of trump cards we haven't used yet. Wang Chong smiled. Mayasame Ayaka was taken aback for a moment before understanding his intentions. Indeed, Wang Chong had more than one person on his side. Knowing that Mayasame Ayaka understood his intentions, Wang Chong didn't say anything. Instead, he bent down and searched the one-eyed fatty's body. Very quickly, Wang Chong took out 2 brocade boxes from his body. Each of the 2 brocade boxes contained a 400-year-old golden ginseng. As expected, almost every single one of these Goguryans has a ginseng on them. Even though this wasn't the first time he had encountered such a situation, Wang Chong still couldn't help but be impressed. The wealth of the Goguryans in this aspect was truly unimaginable. Ginseng with several hundred years of maturity was extremely rare in the Central Plains, but almost every single Goguryan had one. As long as one was a Goguryan warrior, Wang Chong would be able to find such ginseng. From this, it could be seen how quickly the Goguryan Empire nurtured experts. Closing the 2 brocade boxes once more, Wang Chong kept the 2 400-year-old ginseng into his robe without any hesitation. Right, Gongzi, what's a Goguryan? All of a sudden, a doubtful voice sounded from the side. Hearing Mayasame Ayaka's voice, Wang Chong staggered and nearly fell to the ground. Mayasame Ayaka, what did you just say? Wang Chong stared at Mayasame Ayaka with a bizarre expression, and he nearly choked on his own saliva. My Goguryan standard isn't high, and I don't know much of the Goguryan language either. I can only recognize a few words, but I don't know what they mean. By the side, Mayasame Ayaka was frowning with a troubled look on her face, as though she was trying very hard to recall. But if I didn't hear wrongly, Gongzi should have said Goguryan, right? What does that mean? Why is that fellow so angry? Is there such a saying in the Central Plains? Mayasame Ayaka was perplexed. When Wang Chong left, he had only said those 4 words, but that one-eyed fatty seemed to have been greatly agitated. Without any hesitation, he immediately chased after Mayasame Ayaka. This had left a deep impression on her. Looking at Mayasame Ayaka's serious expression, Wang Chong felt as if his cancer of awkwardness was about to erupt. His first thought was that Mayasame Ayaka was teasing him, but looking at her expression, Wang Chong knew that he was wrong. She was definitely serious about this matter. How would he know what it meant? In any case, it was a curse from another world. Wang Chong had only picked it up casually, but he didn't expect it to be so useful. That Goguryan stick immediately fell for it without any hesitation. At that time, he was so used that he forgot that there was no such saying in this world. How could such a thing be easily explained? About this, I forgot for a moment that we still have something to do. Well, let's hurry up and go. How could Wang Chong dare to tangle with Mayasame Ayaka? He quickly found an excuse and left. Gazing at Wang Chong's back, Mayasame Ayaka was perplexed for a moment before realization dawned on her, and her lips curled up into a smile. While Wang Chong was planning to hunt down the Goguryan warriors in the capital, on the other side, the debate regarding Xianxia Jianqiong had reached its climax. After a month of silence, a famous minister of the Tang dynasty, the eldest son of Duke Jiao, and an influential official of the Tang dynasty, Wang Zhen, expressed his full support for Xianxia Jianqiong to take over the position of Minister of War. This was the first time an influential official of the royal court had expressed his support for Xianxia Jianqiong. The matter of Xianxia Jianqiong being promoted to the capital and becoming the ruler of the royal court had been thought to be hopeless for more than a month. However, Wang Zhen's stance had turned the situation around, and the situation had taken a turn for the better. As everyone knew, as an influential official of the royal court, Wang Zhen had always been cautious in his actions, and he rarely took the initiative to express his stance before the situation was clear. As such, Wang Zhen's statement had caught the attention of many. It was believed that he represented the stance of the entire Wang clan and the king of Song. Ever since Duke Jiao abdicated, the Wang clan's influence had waned. However, after the regional commander's incident, no one dared to look down on the Wang clan anymore. No one dared to look down on them. On the contrary, in everyone's view, not only did the Wang clan's influence not decline after the regional commander's incident, it even reached an even higher level of prestige. In fact, it was even greater than when Duke Jiao was still on the throne. This was because the Wang clan had won the respect of a group that they had never won before. The military. Even though Duke Jiao had led troops and fought in battles, he had never been a proper soldier. As such, when Duke Jiao was still on the throne, he had only won the respect of a small portion of the military. However, the regional commander system had allowed the Wang clan to win the respect of almost all of the Han generals. As such, Wang Zhen's stance was not to be underestimated. On top of that, with the existence of the king of Song, the Wang clan had become a powerful faction that no one dared to underestimate. The fact that Xianxia Jianqiong was able to win the support of this group changed the situation. Yang Zhao has indeed made a move. With the Wang clan's help, there's a 60% chance that I will be able to enter the central court. It seems like I didn't help them in the regional commander's incident in vain. In the distant Annan Protectorate manor, Xianxia Jianqiong was dressed in heavy armor. A bonfire burned in front of him as he looked at the letter he had received from the north and laughed heartily. Soldiers are nurtured for 1,000 days to be used in a single moment. Regardless of whether it was Yang Zhao or the Wang clan, it was finally time for him to reap the fruits of his labor. Congratulations, General. Hearing Xianxia Jianqiong's words, a huge commotion broke out in the surroundings. The elite soldiers and commanders knelt down one after another, lowering their heads to the ground. They were overjoyed for Xianxia Jianqiong. Xianxia Jianqiong hadn't returned empty-handed after several decades at the borders. After serving as the Annan Protector General for so many years, Xianxia Jianqiong had gathered a large group of loyal and powerful experts. Every single one of these people before him was willing to die for him. Furthermore, every single one of them was a tycoon who could shake an entire region. This was what he was truly proud of. With these people, he would be able to secure his position even if he were to head to a place like the capital. He wouldn't just be the Minister of War in name only, just like some of his predecessors. Xinyu Zhongtong, after I retire, the position of Annan Protector General will be yours. You should make some preparations as well. After some time, we'll head to the capital together. If you wish to succeed as the Annan Protector General, there are some people you can't afford to not get acquainted with. These people will be of great help to you in the future. As he spoke, Xianxia Jianqiong suddenly turned around to look at a brawny man with an honest face and a full beard. This man had a well-built body, and he was dressed in the attire of a general. He knelt on the ground with a serious expression on his face. Yes, Lord. Xinyu Zhongtong knelt on the ground and said seriously. Xianxia Jianqiong nodded in satisfaction. Xinyu Zhongtong didn't have many strong points. His only strong point was that he was loyal and reliable. He was able to faithfully and perfectly carry out any of the strategies he had arranged. He was the classic example of a general who defended what he had won. As long as nothing happened in Jiannan, Xinyu Zhongtong was more than qualified to become the Annan Protector General. More importantly, Xinyu Zhongtong was his subordinate. As long as the Annan Protectorate was under his control, the 180,000 elite soldiers stationed in Jiannan would be under his control. This would be his greatest asset in the Bureau of Military Personnel. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.